Good morning, children. Welcome to Commerce class. See, in the last class, we saw about a small introduction about what is commerce, and we also saw about what is the need for commerce and when barter system was in prevalence, and what were the inconveniences of the barter system and how civilization grew, and later on we saw about the early trading practices in the different civilization and particularly in our Indus Valley civilization, and what is the importance of trade in the Sangam period. Then we saw about the trade and the traders who lived during the Pandya dynasty, and we saw about the coastal trade in ancient Tamil Nadu, the important coastal places. In Tamil, the inland town was called as Marura Pakam, and the coastal towns were called as Patina Pakam. And what were the important ports during in the ancient Tamil Nadu, like Tondai, Kurkai, Puhar, and Musri were the busiest cities during those ancient times of Tamil Nadu. And apart from that, what is the role of the garment during the ancient Tamil Nadu? And how were the foreigners called as? They were called as Yavanars, and the Arab traders were called as Junahars. And what is Patinapalai praised of? Okay, all those we saw in the last class. And we just finished with the main roads were called as Peruvadi, and the important ports of developed during the Pandya kingdom, that is Korkai, Salayur, Khayal, Marungorpattinam and Kumari, for the foreign trade. And what is the role of the state and what was the duties of the state with respect to the development of trade, we saw till this in the last class. Okay, now let us see the contribution of Kautilya to trade rather. Who is Kautilya? The author of Arthashastra. Arthashastra was written by Kautilya, one of the important contributions given towards the Tamil society is from Arthashastra, which is written by Kautilya. It describes about the economy during the Mauryan time, and what were the marketing practices which was followed almost 2000 years before, we are able to understand by the contributions of Kautilya in his work Arthashastra. And all these were centered towards the medieval India rather. And during the Mauryan time, the commodities trading was almost centralized rather. The goods which were produced in different parts of the country were not sold in that place itself, but they were all brought to a designated place, and selling of the commodities was done only in the place which was designed by the king during that particular period. And not only that, they levied taxes, that is duties, on the goods which were brought into the city. If any good is being imported into the city, they levied taxes for that. And not only that, when they could sell the commodity, when selling is also happening, they levied the taxes also. So we are able to understand that sales tax was prevalent even during those days itself. And not only that, the kingdom itself, the king itself appointed or authorized rather, the right word is authorized only few sellers to do this merchandise jobs rather. And not only that, the price at which a trader can sell the commodities was also fixed by the a king itself, or the king or the controller, or the person who has been appointed by the king to take care of the trading activities. Such a person was the chief controller of the state trading. So to develop trade, they had a separate department, and a chief controller was appointed, who was responsible for authorizing the persons who can do the trading activities, and not only that, for fixing the prices of the commodities which are to be traded also. And not only that, they fix the profit margin, which trader can enjoy. And this profit margin, again, it ranged between 5% for indigenous goods, Indigenous goods means the goods which are produced in the country and which is the native productivity of that country. See, for example, when we take indigenous commodity, rice is an indigenous commodity, food commodity, because rice is more so grown in South India only. So you can say that indigenous goods means rice comes there. Not only that, cotton is also grown more here, so that is also a basic industry which is considered to be an indigenous industry. So, and 5% of profit margin should be kept for indigenous goods, and 10% of profit margin should be kept for imported goods. See, on those days goods were imported from foreign countries also. So because people wanted to improve their standard of living, they wanted to enjoy a better standard of living, so they were using even imported goods. If the goods were imported, they have to, the profit margin was almost 10% of the was kept as a profit margin. And the import of foreign goods was encouraged to enhance the standard of living of the people. See, if we wanted to see, it is common even nowadays, is it? Many a times we prefer to use an imported product, imported perfume rather than a local perfume. This practice is not a recent origin. Even during the time of the Mauryan dynasty itself, the practice of using imported commodities were there. And Kautilya has given importance for the state in relation to what all? Treasury, that is maintenance of money and money related aspects, taxation, that is fixing the different tax structures and tax percentage for different commodities, industry, production of goods and services, goods using machinery. Next is commerce, trading of goods and services, agriculture, and conservation of natural resources, that is effectively utilizing the natural resources without wasting. So the role of the state was with respect to all these aspects, that is treasury, taxation, industry, commerce, agriculture, and conservation of the natural resources. All these information we are able to understand from the work of Kautilya, that is from Arthashastra. So Arthashastra also focused on the creation of wealth as a means of what? Development of or promotion of the well-being of the state. If a state has to grow, the state has to increase or create more of wealth. Okay, that is one of the main important aspect that is being specified in the work of Kautilya. He advocated the maintenance of perfect balance between state management and people's welfare through trading activities. So in the work of Kautilya, he has mentioned that a king should have a perfect balance between what he should be very well or he should be perfect in managing the state, as well as he need to take care of the welfare of the state or welfare of his people also, or his subjects also. So on one side wealth has to be created, on the other side welfare of the people also should be taken into consideration while doing the trading activities. So we could understand from this that the kings were equally concentrating in building their empire or in becoming rich or accumulating their wealth. At the same time, they were also protecting their subjects here I mean the people. Okay, next is, what is commerce and trade in North India? Okay, what is the development of trade and commerce in northern part of India? India was prosperous during the medieval period. Whenever we say medieval period, it refers to the 12th and the 16th century. Despite political upheavals. Political upheavals means the sudden change or an abrupt change that is taking place, you call it as upheavals. There were more of changes, okay, in the political environment in northern part of India. In spite of those changes, India was very, very prosperous rather. Balban was the first sultan who paved a way in the dense forest and helped the traders and their commercial caravans to move from one place to another. See, Balban, you might have learnt in history. Okay, he was a person who intruded into India and conquered more number of places, and after which many of the Mughal rulers came into India. So he was a person who patronaged the traders, who supported the traders who were doing commercial activities in their caravans. Caravans means a vehicle which is being used by the traders to take their commodities for trading purpose from one place to another. So they were given protection okay, to sell their commodities or take their commodities from one place to another. Alauddin Khilji, who were the successors of Balban, brought the price to a low ebb. So he saw that goods were transacted and traded. Not only that, the goods were made available to the people at a very low rate, also at a very low price. Ebb means low level. He encouraged importing of what foreign goods from which all countries, from Persia, and subsidized the goods. See, they encouraged the importing of goods from other countries. They brought the goods from other countries to India, and such goods were sold at a very subsidized rate, that is at a lower rate itself. So only when goods are sold at a low price, people will be encouraged to buy those commodities. As a result, what will happen? We will start importing more amount of such goods. The Arabs were dominant players in Indian foreign trade. So when we look into the foreign trade, more so the Arabs were one of the prominent people who took a major portion of the foreign trade. Next is they never discouraged the Indian traders. So the Tamilians were very good at international trade, and particularly Tamilians and Gujaratis. They were also given good lot of encouragement. The trade between the coastal ports were in the hands of Marwaris and Gujaratis, where the people traded using the seas and the rivers. The Marwadis and the Gujaratis were very good in doing the overseas trade. And overland trade, that is trade happening through land with Central and West Asia, it was in the hands of Multanis, who were either Hindus or they were Khurasanis. Okay, Khurasanis, the Afghans and the Iranians were called as Khurasanis. During the Sultanate period, that is Sultanate, the Delhi Sultanate. Okay, during that period, trade was flourished very well. Okay, trade was at its highest prosperity because gold and silver coins were used for were used as currency for trading. Gold, no, not gold coins, silver and copper coins were used as currency for the buying and selling of goods and services. Moorish traveler described the teeming market of big cities in the Gangetic Plain. Moorish, a permanent structure, okay, using the vessels, okay. Moorish means a permanent structure to which the vessel or the ships were secured, rather, okay, describing the teeming market of big cities in the Gangetic Plain, Malwar, Gujarat and South India. The important trading centers in North India were Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Sonargaon, Jaunpur, Lahore and so on. Just underline these important trading centers in North India. Apart from that, the bargaining foreign trade led to the development of marketing plains. Bargaining means the growing trade or the increasing foreign trade. Because of that, it led to the development of more of marketplaces. It led to the development of towns and villages also. Apart from this, Indian handicrafts, okay, it had a very good market for international trade. It had a very good foreign market. India, and not only that, we were importing horses, dry fruits, precious stones, glasswares, high grade of textiles, raw silk, coral, scented oil, and velvets. From where? From Kabul, Arabia, Europe. That is almost from the western side of our country. We were importing all those goods. And Indian products. What were our Indian products? It was exported to East Africa, Malaya, China and Far East also. The trade conducted through overland routes through the land. We were having trade relationship with Afghanistan, Central Asia and Persia. And we had foreign trade via the land routes with Qatar, the Khyber Pass we were using as land routes, Iraq and Bukhara. The traders of Malabar, Gujarat and foreign settlers in the ports of Calicut, Kumbat, Mangalore, they control major sectors of the port cities. Now here we have a small, a paragraph which gives us an extra information. Like Alankulam. Where is Alankulam located? It is located in the east coast of Bay of Bengal in Ramanathapuram district. Okay, Atankarai. That is, it is a place where the Vaigai river is situated near the confluence of the Vaigai river, situated near Sri Lanka. What is the importance associated with this place? Large number of potsherds of Mediterranean origin. Potsherds means the broken pieces of the ceramic materials. Okay, the broken pieces of ceramic materials which were excavated from the excavated by the archaeologists. The Roman coins which were used during the time of Valentine to Arcadius and Theodosius, the potsherds with Roman ships. Okay, and that is the Roman ship. The potsherds means the ceramic vessels were used, and in the ceramic vessels, the ships which were used by the Roman people were all inscribed on that with lady figurines. Figurines means it is statue. The lady figure and the statues of the ladies, it was inscribed on the potsherds and all, in the ceramic vessels or whatever the utensils they were using. And the Tamil Brahmi shirts with Ceylon Brahmi scripts were found in the ancient Roman ports and all. The department carried out the excavations in 8 seasons and they collected these artifacts. It reveals that India had trade relationship with the Roman countries also. So it shows the Indo-Roman trade contracts during the medieval period. And this paragraph, it tells us about the city of Pumbuhar, one of the important cities during the medieval period, during the Chola period, where trade flourished during the Chola period, and the the importance of the Pumbuhar city is more so understood during the Sangam ages. We are able to get that it was an important trading port because of its relevance found in Silapadikaram. Okay. Next, we shall learn about the trade with Rome, China, and Europe. Okay. Rome Greek traders, often they frequently visited the ancient Tamil country, and they forged trade relationship with the ancient kings of Pandya, Chera, Chola, the dynasty, with those kingdoms. They had trade relationship with the South Indian kings also. Cholas, they had a very good strong relationship with the Chinese Sung dynasty rather. The Cholas conquered the present places of Indonesia and Malaysia, so that they could have trade relationship with China also. That is the reason why we were able to utilize the products which were produced by China even during the times of the Sangam ages. During the 16th and 18th century, the overseas trade expanded with European countries, that is to the western side of India. The European countries, basically, we had a trade with the European countries, land trade we had till the capturing of Constantinople by the Arabs, by the Turks of Arabs. Once the Constantinople was captured by Arab people, they did not allow the Europeans to come to India via the land route. So what happened? The Europeans started discovering the sea route to India via Cape of Good Hope. Cape of Good Hope is a place, the southernmost tip of Africa. And who was the person who discovered Cape of Good Hope? It is Vasco da Gama. And after reaching the Cape of Good Hope, okay, he stopped there for a while and for few months, and then he started navigating and he reached India to the southernmost part, one of the southernmost part called as Calicut. Okay, the present Calicut. So when you look into the Europeans who had trade relationship or who navigated, it was the Portuguese who came to India first to have trade relationship with India, and followed by the Portuguese, the other Europeans also came and settled in India. They wanted to have trade relationship with India. So India's maritime trade was a monopolized one over the Europeans. That is, we had a monopoly trade. That is, we were the only traders who were having trade relationship with many of the European countries rather. And it is said that almost 55% of the world trade which happened on an international basis, out of that 55% of the trade was from India. Right now in this 21st century, our contribution towards world trade is just 2%. Okay, just imagine during the 16th to 18th century, we had almost 55% of the world trade was contributed through Indian international trade. The European merchants who came to India, they were individual merchants only. Sometimes these individual merchants, they sometimes represented the government also. So by coming and having trade relationship with India, they basically established the East India Company in India. The primary aim of these Europeans was to establish their trade in India. But later on, okay, their territory, they developed the territorial ambition in them. They started establishing their empire in India, and that was how the British entered the empire. The British Empire started establishing their supremacy in India. And with respect to textile and shipbuilding industries, okay, it earned a good name and fame during the 17th and 18th centuries. Britishers gradually, they abolished all the princely slates of India, okay, and they started acquiring or extending their British territories in India. Thus, the demand for Indian goods, but many of the goods which were produced in India after the conquering of the British the Indian states by the Britishers, the demand for the Indian goods started declining during the British rule. So what happened? They started putting prohibitions, or they framed policies prohibiting the export of certain very popular goods which are produced in India. They prohibited these Indian goods to be exported to other goods. What will happen when export is prohibited? The excessive commodities will be getting stagnated in India itself. As a result, what will happen? The supply of the commodities will be more than the requirement. So ultimately it will lead to loss of wastage of resources. If these excessive commodities are being sold to other countries, we will get a good amount of money in return. But this was totally prohibited by the Britishers during the British rule. And our Indian handicrafts, it had a very great decline. Between the early 1600 and the mid of 19th century, the British East India Company led its establishment, and they expanded foreign trade in almost all parts of India and even to the other Asian countries also. So initially their interest was what? Only to start or establish their East India Company in India, only with the motive of earning profits. But later on, their mind focus was in establishing their empire rather, okay, and expanding their territorial extension in India. And later on, they heralded against the British colonial imperialism. Okay, they started establishing their supremacy in India, and thereby the whole India came under the control of the Britishers. The next topic is about barter system, which we shall see in the next class. In the last class, since it was the first video of commerce, I did not give you any homework. Moreover, I did not cover any sizable portion for you to give as homework. But with respect to today's class, definitely I will be posting the homework in the WhatsApp group. I want everyone to do the homework and submit the homework to my personal WhatsApp ID. Okay, children, that is all for today's class. Okay, I just end up the session. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.